Hi everyone, and welcome to Wild Earth Safari this afternoon. My name is Mark, Daniel on camera with me, with Craig back in final control, and a beautiful afternoon here at Djuma Game Reserve. Blue skies, little bit of puffs of cloud way in the east over Kruger, but nothing to worry about. Our weather is looking good for the next few days. We've stopped fairly close to camp here on the open area, and we're close to a herd of impala. And what is interesting is that now you'll see a couple of man-made structures. As I said, we're fairly close to camp, and down below we have the mast and Yuri's house. But I think because it's this time of the year when it's impala rutting season, it's time to actually stop and look at impala for a while. And we're going to be doing this over the next couple of months. Well, not really couple, but a month or two. Couple of months and month or two, same thing. But it just gets very, very interesting because most of the year, except I suppose in the early lambing period, most of the year we just see impala and they're not really that active. They eat and they don't do much. But we're now going into the rutting season. I think it started early, in my opinion. Rutting season normally only starts later in May, but this year we kind of started early. And there's an impala ram here that is seeing off some other rams that are just hanging out on the edge of his territory. And the reason why this is interesting is because this is the dynamics that happen at the moment. I've just been distracted by another ram making sounds to the west of us, on the western edge of the open area. There are actually a couple of females looking that way, and I'm wondering if the grass is better on that side of the open area, in terms of whether that male is maybe more virile or maybe a better male to be under. But up until now, before the rutting season started, all these impala have been fattening themselves up on the lovely lush green summer vegetation, grasses and leaves. Impala are both grazers and browsers. And this particular ram has found himself he's separated a group. If you remember, up until now, all the impala within, I'd say, a fair radius of this open area we call quarantine have all been together in a very, very large herd. And it's now that they're going into the rut that they're separating, and rams are fighting for access to females and fighting to keep females within a tight group for themselves. And having built up their condition to favorable to virile and strong and healthy, their attentions are mostly drawn to the other males around them that don't have a chance to get to females but are trying their very best to get to the females. And in between the mating that might be going on, these rams spend very, very little time eating and maintaining this condition. They're constantly vigilant, as this ram is now. It looks like he's got his eye on someone else in the distance, perhaps. And any young rams or rams of similar age that come anywhere near his harem are aggressively chased off, and then he returns. But at the same time, he's constantly keeping these females in a fairly tight group. As soon as one wanders off, he chases her until she returns to the group. And all this running around actually tires them out, and they start losing condition, which means that their tenureship over a little patch of ground and a little group of females is very short. 2 weeks at the most, that they can maintain such activity. And that is nature's way of ensuring that there's a change in ownership and an injection of different genes into the gene pool of the females that are going to be conceiving from all of this activity. Because very, very soon he's going to run himself so tired that there's going to be another male who hasn't been running around chasing rams and chasing there. Off he goes. A female venture. Oh. He's just got to. You only wonder why these females even stick around sometimes. But yes, just asserting his dominance, just reminding them that he's king. Very chauvinistic. Baboons are coming onto the open area. That'll be good because we've been waiting to see the Gari gang. We're looking at all these impala. Are looking, they've drawn my attention to it. They're looking onto the northern edge of the open area where the Gari gang is starting to come out onto the open. They've been raiding rooms and camps today. They've caused a bit of havoc. I managed to get into our old FC where supplies had just been delivered, stole bananas and bread. So, ergo, baboons like banana sandwiches. Well, that's, I think, what was her name? Eleanor. Was it the baby that's Eleanor? Tara's not here to correct me, so I forget. But that female with her youngster. We'll see if we can see another one with a youngster, and that would be Shirley if she did have a baby, but I don't think so. So just getting back to that, he loses condition because he's chasing females and rams around, and the rams that aren't having to do that are just fattening themselves up. They're sparring with other rams, not necessarily very intense sparring, but it still keeps their muscles toned, it keeps them healthy, and before you know it, some of those rams that haven't had a harem are suddenly stronger than a ram that does have, and they're able to oust him. Not very easy to identify different individuals unless there's something really distinctive about them. We do have some impala rams here that have particular shapes to their horns, or maybe a piece of horn missing. But it's a very interesting time of the year for impala. I think that little baboon, that youngster, is called Little Huey, if I remember correctly. I don't know what the new baby is called. Not Shirley's, but the other one. Unless it's the baby that's called Eleanor and it's the mom. I forget. It would be nice to be able to maybe follow them for a bit. We haven't been able to do that for a while. Should we go close to the baboons? Flock of guinea fowl have just landed close by. Not really usual for them to be flying as a flock, unless there's something serious that disturbed them, but they haven't been alarming. variety of things these baboon are finding to feed on. They even eat grass seeds. Probably in a time of abundance for them. Okay, those guinea fowl are starting to complain. It might be an idea to go and have a look. More guinea fowl flying in. And the impala are looking at them too. There's a lot happening here right now. There's another impala ram at about 1 o'clock that's been chasing a female, and he's got a small group of females right on the edge of this group of females. So there's a good chance that these two rams are going to clash in a minute or so. I don't know where to look first. Another impala ram coming out to the baboons. And that makes 2 impala rams here. Another impala ram with some females further up. The guinea fowl have been frightened off and have landed behind us somewhere. Oh, here we go. This ram, there are a couple of females coming from another ram actually joining this ram's group. He's letting them come in, but he's letting them know that he's boss, because these 2 females that have just arrived actually came from another ram's group, and that is how they do it. They sneak. These females are sneaky. They're not sometimes not too happy with the ram that keeps them, as it were. Well, unless it was, we're going to see. Let me go forward, okay? Because this ram is now taking, he's starting to eye out these other rams. Here he goes. Sorry, children. Let me just stop quickly. And this is the ram that is in charge of the group, and he's just seeing off a couple. Oh, now they're behind a tree. Seeing off a couple of other rams that are having their own little squabble. Marking a bush, well, behind a tree. Let's get forward. Yeah. Not being very aggressive at the other rams because they are moving away, and if he starts moving too far from his harem, he's always got this possibility that they're gonna either escape or another ram will come in. Interestingly, there are no youngsters around here, because very often you find that 1 and 2 year olds that have just been ousted, well, the 2 year olds have been out for a while, but the 1 year olds that are being pushed out for the first time, trying to sneak back into the herd, the 2 year olds that may be trying to sneak back to do some mating, and the ram always having to keep not only the big rams away, but also keep the little boys from coming back to mom. He's going quite far. Okay, we're going to move on a little bit. I want to go to the western edge and see where these guinea fowl came from, see why it is that they flew the way they did. Hello girls. Why don't you run away while the ram... Oh, there's another ram who's going to come in. This is not a ram that was in charge of this group. He was actually being displayed to by this ram that was here, but strange things happen this time of the year. It's quite a big boy, this. Oh, he's back. He's just arrived back, and at the time that he's arriving back, there are a few females that were wandering a little bit further from the group. And so what he does is he goes just a little bit closer to them. He's now Fleming, doing the Fleming grimace, and he's off to chase that other ram. He's not even chasing him, he's just got a display and the other ram moves away. So he's clearly become a dominant ram in the area. Confident enough that he can move away some distance and not have another one come in. But what he has to do now is he has to stop these females from venturing too far from the main group. He's gone around the bush, he'll probably come round and chase them back in. Hello, parrot. A female and her car and her lamb. Let me turn around. Could have been the two that came from that other ram from the beginning, and they decided the grass isn't so much greener here. Some of them, they're still youngsters here. And, I mean, that female with the youngster that's just run off, and the youngster followed her, that's one of the late lambs. I mean, it's still only about 2 months old, which means it would have been born late February, early March maybe. And so it follows its mother. And I'm thinking that those were the two that came across from that other ram, and now I've headed back there. And he's trying to herd them back here, and I don't think they're very much interested. It's a task for a male impala. It's quite a tiring day for him. Actually, not only day, night too, because this carries on throughout the night. That's a 24-hour thing for him. And we've got more females that are sneaking away, and what he has to do now is he's got to corral them and get them back in, and he'll try and keep them as a tight group. But females have got a mind of their own. They want to do what they want to do. But yeah, he's managed to herd them, and he's bringing those three back here. Except he's now got another problem, because to the west of us is another ram coming in snorting, and he's probably torn right now whether he needs to come and chase the ram behind us. As I said, it can be very difficult to decide where to put the camera. where to point it, because sometimes so much can happen at once. Look at that glistening coat. I mean, he is in great condition. He's behaving like a sheepdog. Behind Terminalia. What he does is he puts his horns forward. He puts his head up and back and puts his horns forward, and that's enough to intimidate the females. It's kind of enough to herd them. He's going to be coming past us now. He's not even that big. In fact, there's a ram further down, closer to the lodge, that's bigger than him, that was submissive to him. Maybe it's just his horns that are not big in body size. Maybe he's just quite strong. Ah, off she goes. Hello, Tom. Tom wants to know if the rams ever... No, rams, at this stage of the game, when the estrus pheromone starts wafting on the wind and it's time for mating, the rams don't cooperate in any way. The bachelor herds they are bachelor herds, and it's the only time that they do. Cooperate is not the word. Spend time together. They keep a good space around themselves. You will find the younger rams that aren't able to participate in the whole rut. The younger rams will stick around in bachelor groups. Why the females are so covert about leaving? Because they've got to sneak away, Tom. They can't just... If the ram sees them walking away, he corrals them, much like they're doing now. Again, we've got stuff happening behind us, but it's... he's still trying to bring that female and her lamb back here, and she's run off. There's another 2 rams that are going to try, and 3 rams. Let's just move a little bit, because now there's 3-4 rams that are coming. There's a couple of loose females. I don't mean, yeah, you know what I mean. They not with a herd, not loose in any other way, but they... I think I've now lost track of the original ram. I don't think this is him, or it might be. A couple of rams squaring off. 5 rams here right now, and they're all going to be displaying to each other. The youngster doesn't know what to do other than follow mom. She's just learning for the first time what it's all about. Trying to get out of there. This female doesn't want to be with this group. She wants to go somewhere else. She's probably got a boyfriend down the bottom there, and she doesn't like these arranged marriages. She's acquiescing, submitting. He doesn't have to worry about the youngster. He's got to herd the female, and the youngster goes where she goes. Interesting. Oh, we could do a 3-hour game drive just on the Impala alone these days. Okay, let's move. I still wanted to get to the western edge and see what these guinea fowl were flying off for, but by now it's probably too late. Lots of Leonotus coming out now. This is all under this marula tree. This is all Leonotus. Leonotus leonurus, also known as lion's ear. These lovely balls of flowers. Well, it's the seed. Not too many flowers on them. The flowers are quite delicate. A lot of it has been browsed. Strangely enough, we didn't have such a crop of Leonotus last year, but we did the year before. There are times when you can get quite a lot of these little yellow, rather orange blossoms around these seed balls, these balls of I don't know whether it's the calyx or the ovaries. Probably each one is a different, has its separate ovary. Okay, let's adventure further. Interesting stuff happening. We're not likely to find out what was happening with the guinea fowl and why they all flew in unison. Hi there, Alan. Question on crocodiles and alligators. I want to see what the starling has got. I watched a hornbill eating a huge scorpion this morning. Got a nice big grasshopper. And an impala ram being chased off by yet another harem. Hornbill. Sorry, I just got to move. Got a game drive vehicle coming by. Oh shit. Ikaw, ufamba ko eh. Okay. Yummy. Grasshoppers. Unfortunately, starling flew off. But another small group of impala and a ram that's chasing rams off. Alan was saying, asking, why is it that crocodiles open mouths from the bottom, whereas the alligators open their mouths from the top? Alan, I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Are you talking about the throat? Before I carry on, Alan, if you could just send another email and just let me know, do you mean the throat itself or the jaw? Because I have to be honest, I'm not too sure what you mean. Henry, come in. Can you give me an update from this morning on Western Gowrie besides Karula? Okay, yeah, I'm on Wahlberg's Nest. I'm heading down to the dam now. I heard them mention elephant and I thought I'd, or in Clawsville, thought I would just find out. But no, nothing much this morning other than you were lucky to find Karula. Shark found Karula for you. And the boys, I believe they went up to Griffelshoek. We're going to investigate Gowrie Dam right now. Talking about cheetah up at Cheetah Plains on the radio, and I think the Wetela guides are going to be going up there at the moment. Baboon were making a noise in camp this morning, just after they raided camp, just after they managed to open the sliding door and steal some bread and bananas for their banana sandwiches. I wonder if they had bacon with it. But just afterwards, when we chased them off, they started alarming, and it gave me the impression that maybe there was a leopard around camp. And I hear now that there are vervet monkeys shouting around Gowrie Dam. So let's go find Mishu or Induna. One of the boys is around, I reckon. It's what I was thinking when I saw those guinea fowl flying in, but they weren't alarming. You know, guinea fowl, well, I guess not necessarily. If they can fly away from the danger, then they don't necessarily spend time alarming the way they do. But if they were to fly into a tree close to a leopard, all the leopard had to do was intimidate them, like these boys are known to do. And they'd fly from one tree to another, and invariably you'd find one or two that wouldn't make it to the tree, that land on the ground. They don't have great stamina, and that's when a leopard catches a guinea fowl. Start with, I think we will stop on the dam wall and see if we can hear the monkeys. Suppose back today, Gowrie Dam. All the wildebeest are on the other side of the dam for a change. Okay, Alan's asking question. We'll get to your question in a minute. Alan. Right now I want to see a vervet monkey. I want to hear a vervet monkey. Let's see what they're alarming at. There's our crocodile for other Alan's question. Bunch of hippo here. Crocs kind of relegated to a sandbar away from where the hippos normally sit. Right. Well, can't be much danger because I'm not hearing vervet monkeys. Doubly bright on the dam wall because of the sun reflecting off the water. Henry did say south of Gowrie Dam, but I'm not hearing anything, so that means that whatever danger there might have been is gone. Monkeys normally, there's a leopard, they'll still shout for a considerable amount of time after the danger has passed, even when they're not seeing it anymore. Spike. I think his name is going to be Spike. Can't remember who suggested it. I kind of like that. Well, let's move on to Central Road and see if there's anything there. Before we do that though, we're just going to have a look at Spike's throat, because he's pointing his face at us, and this is going to help me with the question that Alan was talking about. I can tell you about crocodile jaws and their muscles of their jaws, and it's the same for alligators, but I don't really know what Alan means about opening to the bottom or opening to the top. But there we get a really nice view down the gullet of a crocodile. I think that's what Alan means about opening. And if it is, then I don't know what to tell you, having not seen alligators. I've got a lovely book called Crocodiles and Alligators, only it's not here. It discusses both crocs and alligators all over the world. Where are you going, gecko? I've got a gecko on the bull bar. And a grasshopper on the bonnet. Henry, come in. Henry?
Main stations, we've got approximately 12 in Combi, Kruger boundary just north of Jacobin Lodge. Milkbury Lodge, sorry.
Interesting. 12 rhino.
Yeah, copy, thank you.
I think the most I've seen is 13, if I'm not mistaken. But it's up on Kruger boundary. 12 rhino in a group must be a sight to see.
Also, Ngalam Konzo from Kapitec clearing, heading towards the Crystal clearing. Going to check around.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Yeah, what happened there? Yeah, very, very fresh.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, Alan. Thank you for that. I didn't know that, and learning something new, as one does every day. Alan is saying that in the crocodile, the lower jaw moves, the upper jaw is in line with the eyes, whereas in the alligators, the lower jaw is fixed and it's the upper jaw that moves. That's very interesting. I didn't know that at all, and I need to look further into that. I'd like to get a comparison of the two. Crocodiles, it's interesting because they've got muscles to close their jaw, but they don't have muscles to open their jaw, and that is why it's so easy to hold a crocodile's jaw closed. I guess an alligator maybe for the same reason. But that is very interesting. That I'll need to look further into it. Thank you, Alan. Why it is, I can't tell you. As I say, need to find out more. Henry, come in. Do you know where those in cow were?
Come again?
Where were those in cow?
They were carrying on the southern side of the dam.
Okay, now there's Lutu at the moment. Nothing happening. Southern side of the dam. It's just where we've been.
There's 3 Madora blocks on the east-west cut line, just to the east of dam.
There's way too much happening off the Western Gari. We need to start herding these animals closer to our side of the world. 3 elephant, Kyamanzi. Thought so. Excuse me, Franklins. Hello. That. Jackalberry. Sorry, I carry on. Hello, Linda. Have I had a chance to rescue the baby marulas? No, not yet. And now the ground's getting too dry. I should have done it when it was still damp. But no, Linda, unfortunately I haven't had a chance to do that. In fact, today I didn't get a chance to do anything. Sorry, Frankies. Waterbuck female there. 2 of them and they're youngsters. 3 of them and youngsters. Very long grass, looking into the sun. Okay, we're going to come back this way at some point. Maybe the waterbuck will be on. thinking about first of all vertebrates in general. Alan, I can't imagine how an upper jaw of any vertebrate could be articulated and the lower jaw fixed. It doesn't make sense, I'm afraid. That's why I need to look into that a lot more. Crocodiles and alligators are not that distantly related that there could be such a huge anatomical difference. Because there would be no muscles. There would be nowhere to anchor the muscles. And I'm just trying to think. If you look at the shape and the configuration, or rather the parts of the skull of any vertebrate, with the zygomatic arches and the points where the masseter muscles anchor onto behind the zygomatic arch, those are all muscles for the lower jaw. There's nowhere for muscles to attach. If a lower jaw is fixed, there's nowhere for muscles to attach to the lower jaw for an upper jaw to have motion. But still, as I say, let me look into it. Interesting concept. And even in fossil records, all the dinosaur fossils are the same. Even the birds are the same. The lower mandible is always hinged with muscles that attach to just behind the eye socket between the going to the back of the skull. Zach, hello Zach. Zach wants to know, I've still got the feather. Have I got a feather in my hat? There's a starling feather there. I don't know which feather you refer to. I think the decorations in my hat change every time I find something new. I haven't found something new in a little while to change it, but there's still a feather on this side, a starling feather that's starting to get a little bit rough around the edges. A couple of porcupine quills on this side that have been there for a while now, little porcupine quills. Reminds me, I must go and fetch all those Koran feathers on Rebecca's Road. Sometime, maybe not now. We're going up to Buffels or Cutline. I want to head up to the northeast. But I'm still convinced there's going to be elephant coming across from that part of the world. But also just keep the sun behind us for the time being while it's still quite bright and harsh. Elephant. Elephant. Getting back to Linda's question, Linda, I need to make a soil mix. Can't just put sand in a pot and transplant marulas. I need to make like a bonsai soil mix. That'll concentrate nutrients enough to keep those little trees alive. It'll be difficult to get them out of the soil when it gets too dry. Not going to happen tomorrow or the next day, I'm afraid. Maybe on the weekend. If there are 12 rhino on Kruger boundary, I reckon most of our rhino are there. Must be a rhino conference. Maybe they're discussing the poaching issue and how to retaliate. They'll be coming back to the Sabi Sand with bazookas. The rhinos are going to start killing off poachers and crushing their fingernails for an aphrodisiac. Okay. With my attempt at humor. Alright, when it wasn't funny, fine. Let's go to Buffelshoek Dam, of course. That's where we are. Now. You go that way, Franklin. Go to the right. Hello, Kiboko. The hippos, a few of them. Some of them are back at Gari Dam. Whoops. Little one riding on Mom's back as usual. That's got to be Bob. Who was talking about Bubble? You, everybody. Who's Bubbles? That one. Somebody named him Bubbles.
bit bigger.
That one looks like it's behaving like our little Bob. I don't think that's a newborn. Or maybe, I don't know. I guess a lot of hippos will try and ride on mom's back. You see, hippos are what we call negatively buoyant, which means that they sink, because hippos don't swim. And these adults are obviously all in water that is deep enough for them to stand or lie down, but have their heads above water. And being such a little hippo, it would have to stay underwater and keep popping up for air. And the only way it could stay up in water that's too deep for little one would be to lie on mom's back. And there it is. It's probably got its legs splayed over her back, lying along her spine. But yeah, that looks a little bit small for a yearling. A little difficult to tell. Just the tops of the heads. I learned something very interesting about hippo recently. When I was on leave, I had a friend come and visit who's studying field guiding, doing quite a comprehensive course. That's going to take quite a bit of time. I can't believe the amount of material she has to study. I was looking through the notes, and one of the students are given exercises to complete at home, and then of course they're marked accordingly. It is quite a little one, that's a couple of months old only. But anyways, not quite an exam, but a sort of a home test, a home exercise to answer these questions, and obviously you've got to go through literature to find the answers, because I didn't even know the answers to some of them. But one of the questions asked for symbiotic relationship examples, or examples of symbiotic relationships between various different things, like between two insects, between a bird and a mammal. Well, there's the oxpecker and whatever an oxpecker is on. Insects, you get ants and aphids and various different examples of insects. But one of the questions asked for a symbiotic relationship between fish and a mammal. And I had to rack my brains because I couldn't think of it. I mean, I know that fish, especially tilapia, feed on hippo dung, but I can't see how the hippo benefit from that. And I learned that there are actually cleaning stations, that there are some fish that clean the hippo of dead skin and things, parasites, and that these hippo actually visit these cleaning stations. They actually splay their toes so that the fish can get in between their toes. And when I thought about it for a while, I thought it makes sense, because when I was up in Kenya, there were some fish. We had some fish up at Elsa's Kopi, which is a beautiful lodge on top of a hill, where Elsa the lioness was raised by George and Joy, and that's where Elsa had her cubs. And we had this fish pond with some fish in that came out of the rivers there. And I used to sit dangling my feet in the water, and these fish, it was amazing. These fish used to nibble at all the dead skin and stuff on my feet. And it reminded me of there's a place in Israel where for hundreds of, if not centuries, well, hundreds of years or centuries, but millennia now, maybe, people have lain in the waters of a certain spot up near the Sea of Galilee, I think it is. Monty, if you're watching, or any of our viewers from Israel, if you could just remind me what it is. I think there's a place called the Banyas, or the Banyans, or something like that, some waterfalls. But there's some place there where people go for fish therapy, and I know that there's a place in Japan where it happens, where people lie in the water and fish help with exfoliation, to kind of makes sense because I guess the fish benefit because they're getting food, and the hippo benefit because they're being cleaned. But I think it is now being considered a bona fide symbiotic relationship. It wasn't in the books when I was doing my studying. I guess that is quite a little hippo. Let's look at that footage that I've got from November of little Bob doing the same thing. In November, I think he was already bigger than that. And that little hippo is a little bit too small to be a year old. Well, let's move on. Bye. Ooh, there's weather coming in from the south. That wasn't there at 3 o'clock. We had blue skies. There were only a few puffs of cloud in the east which are gone. But there's some pretty dark stuff in the southwest over the bottom end of the escarpment. Likely to move up alongside the mountains, but it might be bringing something else with it. I know that down in the Cape it's been cold and wet and miserable. Lovely smell of the spike fawn again. Leopards can purr. Okay, let's do a question and answer session. Zach, no, Tiger Man. Do leopards purr? No, they don't. Next question, please. No explanation, just yes, no. Next question, please. Alan, do we ever create a new road if any of the other roads become too eroded? Yes. And then that road becomes rehabilitated. Yes. Next question, please. Annie, where is rhino poaching? It's a bit more than a yes-no, I guess. We're just coming down here because it's a nice quiet spot. The top end of Buffelshoek Dam. It's really pretty down here. Maybe is it something to see? Where is there rhino poaching? Is there rhino poaching in Kruger? Annie, it has become a disease of the human race, killing rhinos. And it's happening everywhere right now, even here in Kruger, Sabi Sand. Quite still. No. Okay, we can go. Not even the pied kingfishers are hanging about. Egyptian geese are here somewhere. We saw them a bit earlier, but nothing hanging out now. frisky swift. It's rather unique. Frisky swift. Our deadly black mambas located here in the Safari TV area, and how often do we see them? Yes, they are located around here. This is prime black mamba territory, and, well, territory, I mean habitat rather. Prime black mamba habitat. How often we see them? Let me see. Once in a blue moon. They're quite, well, they might be quite aggressive snakes, but they are relatively shy. And I've seen maybe 2 in the last year, out of possibly having been within range of one almost every single day. Animal for long jump. This is Alan, Animal Olympics. What animal will I choose for a long jump? And there's a stick there that looks like a python. It's got the colouring underneath it. My heart was beating. I thought I suddenly found a python. And no, it's just a stick. Which animal would I choose for the long jump? Impala. Can jump maybe from a full tilt. What's it, about 5 meters or more? No, even more. Impala can jump pretty far. Craig said he would have chosen a flea. Now, high jump, I would have chosen a flea, because a flea can jump, I mean, it would be the equivalent of a human jumping about 300 meters. High jump, a flea. But then if we're talking about animals rather than insects, high jump, I would take a kudu. But yes, I suppose a flea, millimeter for millimeter, pound for pound, as high as it can jump just as far, which is further than anything. So, but okay, fleas aren't allowed to be in the Animal Olympics because they're just freaks of nature. Let's talk about vertebrates. Or are there no rules, Alan? Are we talking about vertebrates or invertebrates? But yeah, kudu for me for high jump. Hammer throw, the bowler spider. Javelin. Okay, because now we're going back into arthropods. Javelin would be the cone shell. Hammer throw. What did we do there? Marathon. Marathon would be wild dog or hyena. No, I'd probably choose wild dog or brown hyena. No, wild dog. Weightlifting, undoubtedly a dung beetle. I think it's been proven that a dung beetle can lift pound for pound even more than an ant. Pardon? Well, I'm making up the rules as I go along. So Daniel asked, are we allowed insects? Because I threw out the flea earlier. 100 meters swimming. Barracuda. No, tuna. Wahoo. Okay, wahoo. I think we should go through it. Animal types, you know, like mammals, birds, Fish, insects, spiders. That's an interesting one, Alan. Can a kudu jump higher than a kangaroo, Nana? Of course it can. Kangaroos can't jump very high. Even an eland can jump high, and even a impala can jump higher than a kangaroo. But then again, I don't know how high a kangaroo can jump, but I don't think kangaroos can jump very high. Kudu will take from standstill, not even a running jump. From standstill, they'll lift themselves over a 6-7 foot fence. Okay. 3 meters high, thanks Penny, I remember that now. 10 meters long, it's 30 feet, 33, 35 feet. Impala, when they're running and they take a leap, 3 meters high, 10 feet. By 10 meters, 30 feet. But I think kudu good question. Bobby G, a springbok jump better than an impala? No. I think impala still beats the springbok, I have to be honest. Don't know if Jacques in FC, what does Jacques think? Flower. This is a crassula. The family Crassulaceae. Couldn't tell you what it is in English, I'm afraid. One of the crassulas or kalanchoes. Those are not the flowers, those are either ovaries or flower buds. Flowers come out of the top of that. Uh-oh, sorry. Got a monitor in front, I need to monitor it. I need to monitor my monitor to monitor what you're doing. Ruth, oh look, there's a little steenbok. We haven't seen the steenbok for a while. Stay there, little boy. One of our smallest antelope. Not the smallest antelope, but it's the smallest antelope that we have here. And you look at that, and then I think of the dik-dik that I used to see up in the dik-dik and the Sunni up in East Africa. There's an elephant!
Whoa, yes.
They heard me yesterday. Sorry, little steenbok. I know, you're just as important. But really, just today, excuse me, got to talk to an elephant. Ruth was asking, actually we better go on to the Buffalo's a cut line because they're moving that way, and that's why I want to get to them quickly, because if they're moving north we can lose them quickly. Hello little boy, steenbok. Where's your left? Oh, there it is. Pardon? Yeah, steenbok's not going anywhere. Let's see if we can get to these and blow. They've been in the mud wallow down the bottom there. That mud wallow that we saw the hamerkop in yesterday. These elephants have been there. Hello, hornbill. Oh. Station on Buffalo's a cut line. No, I think it's Susie. Okay, can I join you with a blow? Thank you. How are you? Fine, thanks. Hi, ladies. How are you? That's a lovely smile. Yes. Pardon? No, you know what? It was so frustrating because he got to within like 10 feet of them, and then one of the other vehicles came in and drove right in behind him, and the Impala looked at the vehicle and they saw the leopard and they all ran off. After an hour and a half of waiting.
And you were right there, like it was going to happen. At least it wasn't us.
No, we behaved ourselves for a change.
For a change, we were all patient.
Okay, I've got to talk to elephants. I'm got withdrawal.
Sure, I won't have a chat next year.
Bye. That smile. Oh, I recognize that trumpet. That little trumpet belongs to that little one that normally hangs out with that one Ndlov, that one ellie that's got broken trunk. It's got a boo. It's not like a trumpet, it just goes boo. Yes, like that. Boo. Pardon? He has like a blocked nose. But it's not that little boy because he's too big and he's only got one tusk. Wow, the sky's changing quickly. Young female up ahead of us. Most of them are feeding on this round leaf teak at the moment, and I've actually been waiting for them to come back because they farm with this round leaf teak. They break these scraggly branches off, and it just keeps recoppicing every year to be the same size and the same shape, so that they can get these thin branches and chew the bark off of it. It's quite amazing when you go outside the reserve and you see areas where this round leaf teak grows where there are no elephant. They managed to get into trees as big as these marula trees. They're quite magnificent trees. But you won't find a round leaf teak anywhere bigger than this sort of elephant height that there is here. Now just below us in the dip is where that mud wallow is, as I said, where we saw the Hamerkop yesterday, and that's where they've managed to splash themselves with mud. We're just going to move a little bit. Some beautiful sky in the west, a big cloud building up over the mountains. So there's not going to be a sunset today. Hello, little girl. Hello. Come and say hello to me, please. I've just been so dying to talk to elephants. Even while I was on leave. She's a youngster. Early teens. Actually grazing more than taking the teak, but no, she just came to say hello. She realized there's nothing interesting here. Her stomach is more important than us, I think. But I'm wondering where Mom is. Matriarch. The big lady. The big girl. You don't have to do that to that tree, but I guess okay, we're going to just move around this round leaf teak so we can see her better. Having just pushed over that acacia. It's not even doing anything with it. It's probably just displacement behavior. Unless she's going to feed on it. Oh, a little bit. She'll feed on it a little bit. She could have just picked those little bits of branches off with it still standing. But who am I to judge what an elephant does or doesn't do with the trees that belong to them? It's funny, if a human being cuts but a branch from a tree, I go crazy. But it's okay if an elephant pushes a whole tree over. That I can deal with. Probably why that steenbok was standing up there, because it probably lives around here amongst this rather dense stuff. I mean, steenbok got a very small territory, wouldn't need to go far, with there's so much greenery around here. But with all the elephants that are here, he's probably been displaced slightly. Let's just move on from this little girl. There's a bigger elephant up ahead, and let's just try and get an idea of how many and who we're dealing with. I'm only really seeing, there's the little boy that had a blocked nose. Uh-oh. Aerial ones. There's one, a couple more there. Golden orbs, I want to avoid many here. I just have to go this long way around. That looks like a young bull. That doesn't. That one behind this big dead tree doesn't. Oh, there's another one up there. And a calf, it's a nice little one. Look at that, there's a tiny little one. Let's go and see there. That tiny little one must be with a matriarch. Yeah, there's a big female up there. And oh, there's the rest of the herd. Okay, children, just going to see your parents. The little boy on our right, little girl on our left. And the rest of the herd are actually all crossing over to Buffelshoek right now. They must have come in from Torchwood maybe. Come. Chase me. that. Two little children there that are about the same size. Yeah, they must have just sneaked across from Torchwood maybe. Hello, Mrs. Ellie. Tom, here you go. Look at this elephant. They're not different sizes, but they're different shapes. Tom wants to know why is it that some elephants have tusks of different sizes. It's all genetic, Tom. It's a variety in the gene pool. But there are two very tiny little ones here that are so similar in size. But with two cows, I'm guessing that they may have just been born at the same time, and it's just convenient for them to be the same size. I wish I could go into Buffelshoek because I'd love to go and see them, but now we can't do that, unfortunately. But just behind this one that we're watching now, two very lovely little children. And that female at the back, who's probably one of the moms who we're looking at now, she's got some lovely tusks. Slightly different in shape. I'm guessing she'd be matriarch. She's the biggest of the lot that we have here at the moment. The calves are around her. Some of the elephants that have, Tom, some of the elephants that have one tusk are, it's possible that the other tusk hasn't erupted. You find tuskless elephants, elephants with no tusk, and it doesn't mean that they don't have tusks, it just means that they just don't grow. They just don't have a gene for long tusks. They just don't grow, erupt much further than just out of the gum, so they're hidden underneath the top lip. Oh, look at those little ones. One is just a little bigger than the other, so they are different ages. There isn't much of a likelihood that they'd be twins. It's not very. I think it has been recorded, but it's not likely. That is a difference of a couple of months in their age. Little one at the back has actually got. Oh, we can't see it now. But the little one, the tinier one, has actually got the other one's trunk in its mouth. Let me try and move forward. As soon as we start the car, they run to that big female. They are actually almost the same size. They're just too beautiful. I just want to get out of the car and go and roll in the grass with him. The little one on the right. Still a little bit hairy around the head. Yeah. They're cousins. It is. Oh, that was Sebastian, was it? Yeah, I guess. Oh, that is. I mean, unfortunately, there's quarries in the way now, but if I start up, it's going to stop them doing what they're doing. So we're just going to have to deal with things in the way if it happens. But yes, we are talking about two youngsters that are only a few months old. I guess they're both little boys. Oh, I pushed him over. The bigger one pushed the little one, bowled him completely over. And as I say, the guarri bush is in the way. Excuse me, can one of you elephant come and break this guarri bush away, please? It's trying to get up now. It's lying on a slope. It's going to squeal and one of the adults are going to help it. I'm going to try and move forward because we've got to see this. Oh, but this cow is going to get in the way. Oh, really, children? Yeah, I knew that would happen. Start up this car and we're lucky they're just hanging out here on the edge of the road. Pardon?
Very protective.
Yeah. What she's doing is she's shaking the grass, gets rid of insects, gets rid of sand if the roots are there. The moment now in summer they're eating more of the blades of the grass rather than the roots. And when we go into the dry season, we'll see them pulling up the grasses with the roots, shaking off all the sand and eating more of the root because a lot of the nutrients will be stored in the roots during the winter months, the dry season. I can't imagine little girls being boisterous like this. I'm thinking that both of them are little boys. Head bashing and pushing each other and shoving and did it again. He had the other one's tail in his mouth. Seems to there. Look at that. I suppose that's how elephants can lose their tails. I see the difference with this one in the front. You can see it's a little bit hairy on the forehead as opposed to the other one. By the time this one gets to that age, they'd have lost most of that little sort of that sparse hair on the forehead. It can only be a month or two in between age difference. There's still more crossing the road. Craig saying sounds like there's some elephant behind FC. They are coming back. There's another calf to the front right. There's a fair sized group this by the looks of things, because they spread out over about 100-meter radius. Wee pets, how old do I think those youngsters are? I don't know, a few months maybe. Hello, Tom. Tom wants to know if there are any older males that form part of the herd, or is it only females? Tom, there are bulls that will come and visit with the herds, but in elephant society, it is a matriarchal society, and it is, I won't say it's only females and youngsters and sub-adult, well, not sub-adult, but juvenile males. Once they reach puberty, they start leaving the herd. But elephants are social, and they have social and familial bonds that last a lifetime. And young bulls that have grown up with a family group will constantly come back and socialize with their mother and their sisters. Bulls that have sired youngsters will come back and visit with their children and the females that they've mated with. They won't necessarily live with the herd. They will move with it. Sometimes they'll stay with the herd for a day. Maybe sometimes they'll stay with the herd for a week. Of course, when females are in estrus, they will return and they'll spend time with the herd to cover females. But it's almost like you get two different social structures or makeup in elephant society. You get the females and the youngsters, and you get the bulls. There's just so much that happens in this, in the family unit and the breeding herd, in terms of teaching and upbringing, that there's no time for males and their antics, and the bulls go off and do their own thing to a large extent. Let's go down. We're losing sight of this lot. Still got a couple crossing the road. We're going to lose them all. They're all going north. The thing is that they might be moving west and just alternating from one side of the road to the other. Of course, they don't see it as a road. They don't. To them, it's just, they're just zigzagging. That one that was in the road. Now crossed. Excuse me a second, I've just got to pick up a feather. A primary from, could be a Wahlberg's. It's one of the smaller eagles, and it's a, for me, this is probably about the most amazing feather to find. It's a primary feather. And that'll go on my Land Rover. My Land Rover wears feathers. Primary feathers. Eagle and vulture primaries. In much the same way as this one is here. I wonder, there must have been a sighting in here because the flattened grasses. Been a lion sighting while I was on leave or something. Mvula was on a kill here. Carrie wants to know if Ellie's can have twins. I don't think any have survived. I think there's maybe one or two records, but generally not. Just it's too much stress on the female, and there's just too much in the way of resources needed to raise two youngsters together. So a lot of animals don't really have twin herbivores. Here's our little block-nosed boy who's meh. Sounds more like a cow than an elephant. Most of them have moved off. Crossed the road already. Craig's telling me that there are twins in Addo that are 4 or 5 years old. I know that there has been records of twins in Kruger, but it's not really that common. Well, looks like they've all crossed. Cloud is coming in from the west. It's quite, getting quite dark already. And I think this is about one of the only ones we can actually see right now. Slumby and Love have now crossed over onto Buffelshoek, just north of Buffelshoek Dam. Is there any other update for Western Gowrie? No, there doesn't seem to be any. Thank you, Ephraim. Where we are right now is actually quite a well-used elephant route, and I'm thinking there must be quite a big dam north of us somewhere, because there's a very distinct pathway that runs along this drainage line that we're in, past this big Jackalberry, straight down to Buffelshoek Dam. We've actually seen elephant crossing a number of times here. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, sorry, Sharon. Lisa, why has got Lisa on the brain? Thanks, Sharon. One of the collared elif females that is being monitored has had successfully raised a couple of sets of twins. I don't know if those two are. They look different ages. Oops. Who knows? Maybe they are. We're going to have to keep track of that group. So hopefully we will be seeing more of them in time to come. Well, that's made my day, my month, my week. It's been some time. And when I was at home, my last night at home, I sat amongst elephant, but I didn't see them. I could only hear them around me in the dark. There was a big bull that was walking around my place. I found his tracks the next day. But it had been raining the day that he was around, and I had been tucked under It was cold and miserable. I was reading my book up on the deck, tucked under a duvet, out of the cold and rain. Well, looks like that's it. I would have thought that maybe there'd be one or two little boys lagging behind, but I think those were the last ones that crossed. Thank you, bye. Oh, that was lovely. Promise for the days to come. You see, elephants communicate over very long distances. And now these elephants are going to tell other elephants that I'm back. Right. Every now and then when we're driving we get some really nice questions. This is a really nice question. Gail wants to know if elephant cows ever reach a point where they're no longer reproducing. And how does the matriarchal hierarchy, how does that change? Well, you know, one of the interesting things about elephants is that they're one of the only other creatures that go through a menopause like humans, and that they survive long after menopause. They survive long after their reproductive capabilities have ceased to exist, for want of a better word. You know, in nature we refer to it as being senile, and I know in human terms senile is old and demented, perhaps. But in nature and in animal terms, when we refer to an animal as being senile, I think we're more referring to its reproductive capabilities. But because of the social structure of elephants, and the fact that it is vital that a matriarch assists in the raising of calves, even her own daughter's calves or granddaughter's calves, elephants will still remain active, and a matriarch will remain a matriarch long after she's no longer sexually reproductive. The age at which that happens is probably around 50 years old. And part of the whole reason why that happens is for her to still be able to teach and raise the family and be the matriarch, to be able to impart her knowledge. Abel, how are you, bud?
Good.
Good. Good call, Manjan, no? I heard. Long time no see.
Sport December.
Uh-huh. Okay. They've just crossed over down in the drain, in the dip.
They've got a nice job.
It's not a job. It's a way of life.
It's a way of life. Absolutely.
But yes, it can be a job sometimes. Hello, everybody. Are you having a good time? Well, you couldn't be with a better person, I suppose. Unless you were with me. Bye. Charming. Where was I? Matriarch that stays active in the herd. And then Gail was asking about how the succession occurs within a family group. It is normally the oldest daughter. Well, a couple of things will happen. Sometimes you'll get some of the daughters of a matriarch that get to a certain age that then might split off and become matriarchs of their own herds. And when she passes away, it's likely to be the oldest female of the group that then takes over because she has the knowledge. And then it's kind of an age thing, where the oldest female will then become matriarch. But it depends. It depends on how many daughters she's had, and it depends on the size of the family group. Because what can happen also, if she has two daughters of relatively close age, I mean, they might be 5 years apart, because an elephant it can be 5-6 years between births. But once they reach 40 odd years old, they're both adult females, and by then they're probably already splitting off to form their own family units. So it's not like somebody takes over the herd. You could have a situation where when she passes on, the females that have been underneath her or her daughters then move off on their own to form their own family groups, and they become the matriarchs of their own family groups. So it's not necessarily that one female takes over the existing group. You could have it splitting up into 2, maybe even 3 family groups, that each female then becomes a matriarch of her own group. Go. Weepet wants to know what happens to an elephant body when it dies. Well, the first thing that happens, of course, is the vultures and the predators find it. So it gets consumed by a whole host of predators and scavengers. Lion, even a leopard would come and chew on it. Hyena, jackal, and all the smaller creatures. I mean, right down to, of course, flies, their larvae, not so much the flies, but their larvae, the maggots, carcass beetles. There are a host of insects that depend almost entirely on a carcass. And the bones eventually get cleaned by these carcass beetles and ants and millipedes, and even the big giant African land snails are likely to. And then the bones themselves get spread out by a hyena, other elephants, family members of an elephant that dies will pass through that area, and they will. It's almost like they have a remembrance day or a memory moment. I've seen elephant that stop at where an elephant had died, and they will spend almost a whole day there, just mulling over the bones, turning the bones around, even walking off with the bones. And this is something that that I can tell you about. There's a myth about elephant graveyards, of course, and of course that doesn't happen. And the reason why we know that doesn't happen, well, is twofold. First of all, by this stage of the game, humans have explored almost every corner of the continent. There are very few places, especially here in South Africa. There isn't very much in Kruger, or very many places in Kruger where humans haven't been. Although I imagine there are a few odd corners. But elephants get very emotional over the members of their family that have died, and consequently when they visit the sites where their family members have died, they will pick up bones. I've known elephant skulls to be rolled for kilometers, and in the process it sort of crumbles and breaks and disintegrates, and over time you can get the skeleton spread over, as I say, a couple of square kilometers. When I was a kid, back in the 70s, there was an elephant shot on the one boundary of our place up in the Timbavati. It was evidently what they called it. They termed it a rogue. I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't quite understand it much. But it had evidently caused a lot of damage, and some big gung-ho macho man decided he was going to shoot it, so they did, and it died just on our boundary. And it was as recent as last year that I found one of its vertebrae way far away from where it had died or had been killed. I think for the first 10 to 15 years nothing grew there because of the blood and stuff that had leached into the soil. But within that period of time, I mean, by 10 years later, there wasn't a single bone at the site where that elephant had died. Those bones had been spread all over the place. This cloud has come way over us already from the west. Does leopard claws grow continually, and how long do they grow? Yes, they do continually grow, as do any cats. And that is why they sharpen their claws. That is why, so that they can tear off the almost like a sheath, so that the new growth underneath becomes sharp, because they get dull. How long can they grow? I haven't had the misfortune of finding out personally, but I would imagine, having found a lion claw, I would imagine about an inch, 2.5 centimeters. I got a lion claw from one of the lion that was eaten by one of the, I don't know whether it was a lion that was eaten by the Machingis or the Mapojos, but there was one day Herman and I were on drive on Spam Road, and there was some lion dung, old lion dung next to the road, and I got out and I just I wanted to find bone fragments to talk about how a lion don't digest bone and hair and stuff, and I found a lion claw in that bone, and lion hair in that dung. So it was from one of the lion that had been eaten by one of the big coalitions that we have. But just judging by the lion claw, I can only sort of scale it down to maybe how big a leopard's claw will be. What I'll do, maybe next drive I'll bring that lion claw along, and I'll show you the lion claw. Next question, please. What is my favorite big cat and why? From Ross. Probably a lion, leopard, cheetah. For my own, I only have to choose one. Then it would probably have to be... Why do I have to choose a favorite? Probably be elephant. Oh, it's got to be a big cat. Okay, elephant that says meow. I don't know, Ross, that's a really difficult one because I love them. I have a very soft spot for cats. And, you know, domestic cats show traits of all the big cats. You can see a little bit of lion, a little bit of leopard, and a little bit of cheetah in any domestic cat. I don't know jaguars, I don't know tigers, so I can't talk about them. I mean, tigers probably would blow me away. I mean, I would probably be completely overwhelmed if I had to see tigers, and maybe one day, if I'm lucky, I'll get to see them in the wild. But cheetah, I guess maybe. Maybe not now here at Djuma for the last 2 years, and then in all my time in East Africa, only time I really saw cheetah was when I was up in Serengeti and Masai Mara, and that was just visiting. I wasn't living there. But in the places that I lived in East Africa, didn't have access to cheetah. So my cheetah experience, which is quite extensive, I have to admit, has been from here in the Sabi Sand and Manyeleti, and at home in the Timbavati more than anything else. Some of the best cheetah times that I've had on foot have been in Manyeleti, but some of the best cheetah times that I had, period, have been in my really younger days down in the southern part of the Sabi Sand, where I managed to watch cheetah grow from, much like we've watched Mishu and Induna being raised by their mom. I've been lucky enough to see cheetah raise their cubs and watch them from very little to leaving mom and hunting on their own. And I used to make a thing about trying to find cheetah on full moon so that I could sit with them on an open area all night, because cheetah are not dangerous. I mean, there's no, as far as I know, I know I'm going to get emails now about this, but there are no known attacks of cheetah in the wild. There has been 1 or 2 incidents of cheetah in, I think, Serengeti or the Mara with those pop-top cars, and there's been 1 or 2 other incidents. But I think those were all, they were all extenuating circumstances under those conditions. But there were times when, excuse me a second. Wires all caught up. Here we go. Is it so late already that we have to use lights, or is it just because there's dark cloud? I hope it's the dark cloud. I'm just having too much fun at the moment. But full moons, I always used to go out on full moons. Whenever full moon came around, I'd wait until all the guests and staff had gone to bed, and I'd sneak out in my Land Rover and I'd go and sit on an open area. It would either be with any of the big cats, but if there were cheetah around, and there were normally always cheetah around, it would be with cheetah. And there were times when I'd put a blanket on the ground next to the Land Rover, one of the seat blankets, and 6-pack of beers, and just sit with them all night. You can hear them purring. I think it was Zach who was asking about leopards purring earlier. The only big cat that purrs is a cheetah. Where are we going? Where should we go? We're on Drakensberg Drive. What we're going to do, we'll go south on Drakensberg, we'll come north back along Cheetah Cut Line. No, what we need to do maybe fairly soon. Hello, little scrub here. I'm just going to switch lights off. Okay, Rich is just making me digress now, because I think I'm waxing on too long about cheetah. Rick wants to know if eagles can mate in flight, and yes, they can, and they do. There's some eagles that only mate in flight. Little scrub here. Igal wants to know if there are any king cheetah in the area and how rare are they. Not that I know of, Igal. To my knowledge, I don't think any king cheetah have been seen in the Sabi Sand for some time. I think there are records in the past, from like about 20 years ago maybe. I might be wrong. Craig maybe spent more time in the Sabi Sand than me in recent years. How rare are they? They're about as rare as black leopard and black panther. Maybe black panthers are a little bit more common. But it's the same concept, the same thing. They are melanistic cheetah. They are not different species. They are merely a melanistic variety of normal cheetah. In other words, the black pigment is the dominant pigment. Ryan wants to know, what is the difference between black and white rhino dung? That's a nice question. Well, for one thing, Ryan, black rhino are what we could call a browser. Sorry, this scrub here is still on the road, and as long as I've got lights on, it's going to run along the road. Well, even without lights. That's its avenue of escape. It's just going to keep running on the road. Next junction, we'll go left, and I'll ask the head to go right. Ryan, black rhino are what we term a browser. They eat leaves. And white rhino are grazers, bulk grazers. They eat grass. So one of the primary differences between the two is that the composition of the dung is different. The white rhino's dung, you can see it's made up only, if not mostly only, of grass. There might be the few odd twig in it that gets taken in when they're feeding on grass. And the black rhino is going to have twigs and leaves and little hair. You're running far away from home. Why don't you run off there? You go down that road. You go down that road. There you go. There's a good child. I'll go this way, okay? Good. Go down Battalieu Road. We'll go to Mumba Road. So, leaves and maybe twigs. Another difference is that the tannins are different in leaves to the tannins you find in grasses. So the color is a little bit different. It's a little bit more brownish, I think, in the grasses, maybe a little bit more reddish. Or it's darker with the grasses, and it's a bit more brown and reddish with the leaves. But also when you pick up a little twig or something, a slightly bigger particle out of black rhino dung, the way black rhino feed and the way they cut branchlets and leaves off of the trees leaves almost like a 45-degree angle. to the edges, and that is a telltale sign, because you're not going to see that. Because black rhino are using their teeth, white rhino are using their lips to pinch the grasses. So even if a white rhino does happen to pinch and eat something that's not a grass and it's a little stem, it'll be broken off at a very rough angle, or rather a very rough edge with no angle to it, whereas the black rhino actually bites off branchlets and leaves, and so you get that very distinct 45-degree angle. Next. See, what we want to do is we want to go back towards Gari Dam, because if there were monkeys shouting, there were baboons shouting near camp, might be an idea to go and do a few loops around camp. So we'll go up to Cheetah Cut Line now, go back to Central Road, make our way back towards Gari Dam, and we'll go and have a look. Maybe we'll bump into a leopard around there or something. So many, huh? Yeah, we're gonna have to come here. We see them better at night. We're just looking at strands of old golden orb webs, but it's the main strands that are left behind to reinforce silk bracelets that we've got on our wrists. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know that. Peggy, interesting question. Wants to know if there's anything that determines whether an elephant is a male or a female when it's born. Or I suppose as an embryo, much like in reptiles, some of the reptiles' temperature determines the sex of the youngsters. Not to my knowledge, Peggy, but I do have to add something there. That I do know that in some cases with some animals, and I know it occurs with giraffe and things like kudu, that has been documented, that when in an overall population in a given area, when there is a higher number of, let's say for example, there are a lot of males in an area, that somehow more females will be born the next season. I don't know how nature determines that. I don't know what the criteria is, but I know that it has been recorded that in some cases where there's a shortage of a particular sex of things like giraffe and kudu, that there will be a higher number of that sex born the next season or in births to come. It has obviously got something to do with hormones, pheromones, and stress and stuff. But with elephant, I really don't know what it is that determines the sex of elephant calves as when they're an embryo. I don't think we've really figured out amongst humans what it is that determines whether we're male or female when we just started developing. I know there are a lot of old wives' tales about, well, if you want a boy, you do this, and if you want a girl, you do that. But once again, I don't know much about that part of human reproduction. Or there's a bush baby in the middle of the road. Or maybe it was it's a nightjar. It's too far into Torchwood, so we can't see it. It's in the road. Must be a nightjar. Not moving. Bush baby wouldn't be there. Gail wants to know, how did Indunan lose the tip of his tail? Well, that is all speculation. But I think I have an idea why. There was a time when fact, it was just off quarantine with Mishu and Duna and Karula, and they had a little kill up a very scraggly tree, and the hyenas came in, Mishu and Duna. You see, it was a bit of a... There was a time when they were very young, when there wasn't such stiff competition on the kill, but it got to be when they started getting bigger. If one of them was on the kill, he would get so aggressive that he wouldn't let the other one near the tree even. And this particular time when there was a kill, I think Induna was up the tree. Karula was down on the ground. She was avoiding the hyenas, as she always does, because she's grown up with them, and they kind of have this understanding. But the hyenas, they kind of caught Mishu off guard, and he was caught. It was kind of between a rock and a hard place situation, because his only avenue of escape was to climb up the tree that his brother was in with the kill, and of course that incurred the wrath of his brother. So he had his brother snarling fire and fury above him, and he had this hyena snapping at his heels, and he couldn't quite get high enough into the tree. And he actually, I think, if I remember correctly, he actually had his bum bitten, and he got pulled out of the tree, and he managed to escape. And this is what I think happened to Induna. I think it must have been on Buffelshoek, because one day it was fine, and the next day he had this raw tip to his tail with all his skin and meat taken off of it, and it was just the vertebra sticking out. And I seem to think that must have been what happened, is that he got caught a little bit off guard. The hyena chased him up a tree, and he couldn't get high enough into the tree, and the hyena managed to jump up and maybe grab that tail. Because I don't think it would have happened from fighting with his brother. That kind of fighting, you don't. Well, fighting with his brother, he would have got injured in the face rather than the tail. But that's how I think. There was a general consensus that others thought the same as well.
I can hear west, holding south of Second Rock. I cannot check now, so if I'm lucky, I will let you know, boy.
South of Second Rock. I wish I knew where Second Rock was. The leopard calling. I'm going to stop. Second Rock is somewhere here on Torchwood. It's not too far. I don't know whether it's up. I think it might be if you go up Central. Was this Central? Let's just stop here a sec. But then if it's south of Second Rock, it's not likely to come this way. Okay, well, let's go look for our own leopard anyway. Aha. Penny's saying that Ellie that has twins, Ellie by the name of Merle, lives in the southern part of the park. She's had 2 sets of twins. Well, it is possible, it's just not common. Doesn't happen very often. Very rare. It'd be interesting to check whether those are twins, those 2 that we saw. Lovely warm evening, just as well, because I forgot to bring a jacket. But it's that warm sort of feeling like there's going to be rain. Hello, Bobby G. Bobby G's heard of some elephants that access caves to get to the salts, and Bobby G wants to know if there are any caves in this area. Well, first of all, no caves in this area, Bobby G. And where it happens is only one place. I think it's Mount Elgon. Elgon. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to recall now. I think it's Mount Elgon in Kenya. Not Kenya. Kenya. But it is. There's one place in Kenya where for centuries elephants have been mining the minerals and salts on this mountainside to the point where it has now become a cave, or it might have been caves in the beginning, but they've just made it deeper. And it's pitch black in there, and I remember seeing footage actually of these elephants, infrared footage of how they feel their way with their trunks. There's a pathway that they have made over the centuries that gets them to the back of this cave, and it's deep in. They go quite far in. Elephants finally pushed over that occasion. They go pretty deep into these caves to get to the salts. That obviously it's lacking in their diet, in the vegetation that they get. They're not getting it, and so they need to supplement those minerals with what they're getting in the cave. But to my knowledge, it doesn't occur anywhere else. In fact, funny that you should mention it, I used to manage a game reserve north of Johannesburg, a very big private game reserve. And the only people that were ever allowed onto that game reserve were actually film crews, and of course the family that owned it and their friends. And there are a lot of caves there. In fact, there's some very important caves. It's an area known as Cradle of Mankind, and it is an area where some of the most important hominid fossils have come out of South Africa in the last, well, since the 1950s. In fact, it was a chap that I know who was doing his PhD thesis from University of Atlanta, Georgia, and Lee came out and he knew he came to these caves and he was looking at the breccia. Now the breccia is fossilized bone in rock. This is millions of years of accumulation of bone where it eventually becomes rock, and it was all, a lot of it was taken out of these caves because at the turn of the last century, in the early 1900s, miners used to go in there to pull out the lime. They had big kilns that they had built to extract the lime, and of course they just saw it as just lots of rock and bone, and they didn't look at it very closely. And then in the 1950s, paleoanthropologists started looking a little bit closer at it. The likes of Raymond Dart, there was a Professor Brain, there was some of the big names in Southern African paleoanthropological history. The South African, I guess you could say, the South African equivalent of the Leakeys in Kenya. But they wrote off a lot of that fossilized material as merely just a lot of animals and nothing of interest, because in the 1950s, I guess, they didn't have maybe the technology that we have today. And Lee came along, and this was in the early 90s, and he was convinced he was going to find a hominid fossil there. And lo and behold, he did. And it was probably, in fact, I think it was a week before I took over management of this place, that he found this hominid fossil. Anyways, I'm digressing. We were talking about elephants in caves, as I can only digress. You know me. Just I got onto a big subject there. But yes, the film crew arrived once. This was before my time, and they wanted to film something about elephants going into caves. And these caves, the reason why they are caves is because there are these limestone intrusions in the dolomite and the quartzite. Well, they're quartzite lines within the dolomite, but it's the lime that erodes faster than the dolomite, and of course that is what creates these caves and sinkholes. And sometimes, we're getting into geological now, but anyways, these beautiful caves that are littered with rock all over, and the dolomite is a very, very sharp rock. And they had I don't really want to use the word tame, but they had this habituated elephant that they wanted to film going in and out of this cave. And it's really, elephants don't like walking on rocks, even at the best of times. There's a chameleon. No, we can't get a good view of it because there are too many leaves in the way. There's another chameleon. 2 chameleons. Let's see how many more chameleons we can find. Nice population of chameleons here. There's a forward a bit. Get that one with the bush willow seed in front of it, and I can finish the story because I waffle on sometimes, just way too long. But this elephant got so angry because these film people were making it walk over rock all the time that it actually crushed the cameraman against the wall of the cave and killed him.
Killed him?
Yeah, killed him.
Jeez.
You can't make animals do what they don't want to do, especially an elephant. And I can remember I worked with a couple of film crews when I was managing this place, and they wanted all the Blesbok to do one thing, and they had this whole script of what they wanted the animals to do. And
Wild animals though.
yeah, I swore I'd never work with a film crew and animals again. Yeah, but you see, we're not trying to manipulate animals. It's different. I mean, it's different when you've got an international film crew that are filming something that's got nothing to do with animals, yet they've got in their script, they've got animals doing something, and they've got budget and time restraints, and they want these animals to do that. And they're not tame animals or trained animals. It's just frightening. Anyways. 2 chameleons. We should count one of these days how many we can see. The reason why we can find chameleons so easily is because they are almost exclusively diurnal. And at night they find themselves a safe spot on the branchwood. Safe except for our eyes and the spotlight. But you see, they go very, very pale. They become paler than the leaves and the things, the branches that they're sitting on. And they curl up their tails, and there's just a different shape to them than the plant and the leaves that they're on. And with the light, it reflects more off the chameleon than it does off of the leaves. So that's what makes the chameleon stand out so much. And that's why I was able to see that chameleon the other night at about 40 feet away. But I'm looking at the trees for other things too. I'm looking for owls, I'm looking for bush babies or jennets. I'm looking for snakes that are sleeping too. Might find a black mamba sleeping. So no, we don't have caves. Yes, it could have been a much quicker answer, but well, what can I say? Oh, wow. Bubolacteus. Hello, and it's not, it's actually a spotted eagle owl. Looks like he wants to fly, but I'm not going to keep the light on him for too long. Yeah. It's got yellow eyes.
What's behind it?
What's behind it?
Yeah.
On the tree?
In the grass. To your right.
I've got a thing in my ear, and I've got... Where about there?
I'm grazing. It's just on the right behind this bush here.
This bush?
Yeah.
I can't hear anything. I want it to look at me because I think it's got yellow eyes. I mean, it looked like a giant eagle, but it had orange eyes. Yeah, it is a giant. Sorry, why I saw yellow eyes, I don't know, but yes. Maybe it's just the tapetum that I saw. But yes, Bubolactis, it's the first thing I said when we got here. Giant eagle owl. What is that under its wing? That dark patch.
You seriously not hear that animal next to it?
No, this humming is way too loud. I have a hearing problem. When there's noise, I can't hear other noise. But we'll have a look. Sorry. I don't want to shine on the owl too long because we're somewhere here. Just killed something. Owl's just flown down and killed something. And I think it's flown off with it. Did you hear that screaming? There it is. See if we can see what we got in its talons. Is there anything in its talons? Unless it just scared something. No, spotted eagle owl doesn't have those black buffalo.
Just shine down. And down to the right. There.
Oh, there. Well done, you heard the buff. But I'm interested in the owl at the moment. Something in his right talon, I think. Might just be the leadwood, the shape of the leadwood. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get the light position properly, folks. And then to hold it still is another matter entirely. No, it's got nothing. Something was screaming, so it made an attempt at something that maybe flew off, and buffalo is not really concerned about the owl and the screaming. I couldn't even hear a buffalo. But no, seriously, being as low as I am, the humming of the amplifiers is a bit too loud. Okay, I don't want to shine on our buff too long. The exercise is all about nocturnal rather than diurnal. We see them during the day, we don't need to see them now. So where was I, and what was I? What didn't I answer? Melanie! If we find any kind of orphaned animal, what do? Do we leave it or do we help it? Well, my general policy is leave it. We don't know if it's orphaned. We don't know if mom has left it and is coming back for it, for one thing. The other part of it is we cannot raise an animal or something and expect it's going to function as it should when it becomes an adult, because there are things have to be learned from members of its own species that are vital to its survival, and not everything is instinctive in nature. And one of the things is learning about danger, and in some cases where to find food and water and how to do so. That's like that owl that I had when was it? 18 months ago. I resisted for almost a day, saying leave it, leave it, leave it, and then eventually I relented and I went to see it, and when I saw it, my heart went out to it and I had no choice, so I raised it and it disappeared. Whether it flew off and became an adult owl or not, I will never know, and I can only hope that it did. But Melanie, really, I think it's better. It depends. I think it depends. Circumstances. Depends on whether you got predators in the area or not. Oh, there's that dwarf coral. I don't know. I think you'd have to take it on merit, sum up the situation and judge it accordingly. But generally speaking, I would say you got to leave it. If it's orphan, it's probably for a reason. Nature is so vast and there's such large areas, there must be orphaned animals all the time. We can't look after them all. But we just can't raise an animal the way a member of its own species can. So sometimes it's better not to. Alan wants to know if penalties are severe enough for poaching. No, of course not, Alan. There are no penalties, especially when half of the people who are condoning the poaching are the people in law enforcement. I mean, it's corruption and things. I'm not even going to get into that. But a simple answer to your question, no, Alan. Penalties are not severe enough for poaching. I mean, apart from the fact that, no, let's not get into it. If penalties were severe enough and there was enough of a policing and enough of an anti-poaching force, there wouldn't be poaching. That's why, prior to 5 years ago, I would say, even 10 years ago, there never was any poaching in this country. You never heard of rhino being poached and elephants being poached because, well, the policing was so good in those days, but also maybe penalties were better, but also there wasn't such a corrupt bureaucracy. I can get so mad with it sometimes. Kenya adopted a policy, Zimbabwe adopted a policy once, shoot to kill, ask questions later. Their anti-poaching patrols. Shoot before you get shot, because poachers were carrying AK-47s and things like that. But the judicial system, sadly enough, is not strong enough to deter poachers. There needs to be pressure on government to make it important. Nature just doesn't seem to be that high on the priority of governments. That's the saddest part of being a human, is that it's all about money. It's all about oil and pharmaceuticals and banks and money and greed. Okay, let's move on. Charlie the tuna. Mongoose question. On to happier subjects. As you probably heard from my tone of voice, I'm a little bit upset with the whole issue. But mongoose is a fun thing to talk about. Charlie wants to know. Charlie the tuna wants to know. I'd love to know how a tuna types with its fins. Anyways, Charlie the tuna, are there any nocturnal mongoose, or are mongoose nocturnal? And do they use any other home other than termite mounds? Well, some mongoose are nocturnal, some species, and some mongoose species are diurnal. The majority of the mongoose species are diurnal, and there are some nocturnal species. You'll find that the social ones are predominantly diurnal, in fact exclusively diurnal. some of the solitary mongoose species are nocturnal. Although you could say that the white-tailed mongoose is sort of like a loose social structure with the white-tailed mongoose. The nocturnal mongoose, things like white-tailed mongoose and bushy-tailed mongoose and water mongoose. But there are no hard and fast rules, because there's a solitary mongoose that's a diurnal mongoose, slender mongoose, well, a number of them actually. So a little bit of both. Some mongoose that live at night. Basically what it is that it's limiting the amount of competition, because they're all small carnivores. If they're all running around during the day, there'd be a little bit too much competition. So nature decided, okay, well, you can run around at night, and you can run around during the day, and then there's not so much competition. As far as their homes are concerned, well, yes, you might find, no, I'd say predominantly termite mounds. There's lightning in the north, and if we're getting this cloud coming in from the northwest, we might just have one of those flash storms that come in from the north tonight. It's warm enough, it's humid enough, there are enough insects flying around. I've noticed ants building cones around their holes. There have been tortoises walking around. So who knows? Maybe there's a little bit of a rain coming. Need to monitor that lightning, although it's not going to be easy to from camp. Yeah, a couple of flashes of lightning in the north. Bats are having a field day. Frogs are starting to call. We're coming up to Gari Dam. That's another thing. The frogs are going to sense the rain's coming. Oh yes, my tree frog in my room was hopping around today. That's a good sign that maybe there's rain coming. I can hear bubbling casinos here at the dam. Hello, hippo. Oh, it's gone under. Come back again. You're not Humgo. Oh, you know, you're not Humgo. Gosh, you're a big hippo. I want to meet you on a dark night. Just going to look for our reptile friend, Spike. Can't really see much. That light's a bit bright. Spike! Where's Spike? Spike the crocodile. Would be in the water now because we would have warmed up all day and he's not going to be hunting. Catching fish and things. Oh, it's a bit big for that. Reed frogs. Beep. Those are mostly reed frogs also. Melanie, getting back to abandoned children in the bush. If it's an endangered species like the black rhino. Yes, I think so, Melanie. I think yes, under those circumstances. You see, also, you see a black rhino, it's a different story altogether because it does have a value in terms of its value to the black rhino as a whole. Its genetic makeup is important. Let's go down Twin Dams Road for a bit. See if there's any sign of cat. Look, I mean, up in Kenya, they're rescuing baby elephants all the time, and I think nowadays we've probably got the facilities in this country to be able to deal with a baby elephant if one is found. There was an attempt by people to raise a young lion cub that had been, and they wanted to do the whole Adamson thing, and they made the biggest mistake of going up to, where was it, Zambia or something, to try Impala, yeah, to try and raise it there and film it and do, and then of course they didn't take into account that they're trying to raise the lion within the territory of other lion, and it was a stranger, so when the other lion found it, they killed it. But yeah, that's why I say take every situation on merit, and if it is perhaps endangered, threatened species, if its survival can be ensured, or rather if it can be assured a certain amount of freedom as an adult. A lot of things, if you raise it as a human, it's doomed to a life in captivity. What kind of life is that, really? For some people, the way some people rehabilitate and raise animals, there is an amazing quality of life for creatures that are being rescued. There are a number of rescue centres and rehab centres with people who are running them that have an incredible passion for wildlife and animals and nature in general. The problem is that a lot of the time it's just an excuse to create a tourist venue, and it's just an excuse to have tourists come in and look at the animals and pet them and pay money. And although there's supposed to be legislation in this country to prevent that, it still happens. And one of the worst things you can do is go to one of these rehab centres and go and have a photograph taken with, say, a lion cub or something. What those poor animals go through, they get pulled around by children and adults alike. It's not a life for an animal. If an animal can be raised in its natural environment and it has a lot of freedom and stuff, different story. Yesterday I saw zebra tracks coming up from Philemon's Dip on towards Quarantine, yet I haven't seen any of them. That was quite fresh yesterday afternoon. They must have carried on north. A little bit of dust in the air. Something's been moving around, unless it's a vehicle. Night impala. Wow, lots of them. Come children, run along the road. All of you, come across. And you, little boy. He's tired. He's a youngster. Something with big eyes over there. Two big eyes, quite far apart. I think that's wildebeest maybe. Looking straight at us. Yeah, it's a wildebeest. Coming low down in the grasses as well. Might be one of the wildebeest lying down. Young wildebeest. A lot of them, a lot of animals in the open area tonight. Remind me to show you the fruits of the sickle bush, everyone. Why it's called a sickle bush. Yeah. Well, I thought we'd find you something here on quarantine, open area, but well, there's a lot of impala and the wildebeest here. Don't really want to shine on them at night because they are diurnal. We do see them during the day. Apart from the fact that these rams are running around chasing each other, I don't want to have one of them running into a tree. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for a lovely afternoon once again. It's been fun, and of course finding Ellie's was a bonus. I'm just lucky to catch them before they left and went over onto Buffelshoek, with a good chance that maybe they're moving west and they're going to zigzag their way along Buffelshoek cut line. Maybe we'll find them tomorrow, but by the looks of things, maybe they're coming back. This has been a Wild Earth Safari here at Djuma Game Reserve, our PM Safari. My name is Mark. Daniel been on camera, and Craig in final control. We hope we're going to see you tomorrow morning. Our morning. Bye for now.